Hello and welcome to our Bible study of 2 Samuel, and we are in chapter 21 today. Okay, let's dive in. Then there was a famine in the days of David, 3 years, year after year, and David inquired of the Lord, and the Lord answered, "It is for Saul and for his bloody house, because he slew the Gibeonites." And the king called the Gibeonites and said unto them, "Now the Gibeonites were not of the children of Israel, but of the remnant of the Amorites, and the children of Israel has sworn unto them, and Saul sought to slay them in his zeal to the children of Israel and Judah. Wherefore David said unto the Gibeonites, What shall I do for you? And wherewith shall I make the atonement, that ye may bless the inheritance of the Lord?" So we've got years later. David managed to get his throne back, of course, after the rebellion. And there was a famine for 3 years. And David reached out to God and said, "Why is this happening?" And God said it's because of what Saul's family did, where they killed the Gibeonites. So this was paying for a sin, paying for a previous sin of Saul. Now this incident, I did double check my notes. It says it's not recorded in scripture, but it's clearly it violated a covenant Joshua had made with the non-Israelites years before, with the Gibeonites. So in order to lift God's judgment against Israel, David asked the Gibeonites how he could make up for it and restore the Lord's blessing to Israel. David reached out to try and put it right. Beautiful response. Instead of what we want to do when things happen is we want to cry and moan and blame God. How many times do we see that? People blame God. Well, why does God allow this to happen? Why is God making this happen? Why is he letting this happen? Well, we got to reach out to him and ask him, what's happened? Why is this happening? And there's always a reason. He doesn't just angrily have a go at people for no reason. Sins have to be paid for because he is just. And what we should do is try and put it right as best we can, if we are able to. So he did the right thing in trying to make it right, to help with the famine. And the Gibeonites said unto him, "We will have no silver nor gold of Saul, nor of his house. Neither for us shalt thou kill any man in Israel." And he said, What ye shall say that I will do for you? And they answered the king, "The man that consumes us, and that devised against us that we should be destroyed from remaining in any of the coasts of Israel, lest 7 men of his sons be delivered unto us, and we will hang them up to the Lord in Gibeah of Saul, whom the Lord did choose." And the king said, "I will give them." So the Gibeonites asked that 7 of Saul's male descendants be hanged. So they wanted 7 of Saul's men to be hanged. Now we know that Saul had killed many more than that, but there's always significance with the number 7, as we know. 7 is God's number of completeness. So, they chose the number 7. This would then bring satisfaction for all the wrongs that Saul and his family committed. And yes, it sounds grim, doesn't it? But it's an important reminder for us that sin is an offense to God, and there are always consequences to sin. Okay. But the king spared Mephibosheth, the son of Jonathan, the son of Saul, because of the Lord's oath that was between them, between David and Jonathan, the son of Saul. Fair enough. But the king took the 2 sons of Rizpah, the daughter of Aiah, whom she bare unto Saul, Armoni and Mephibosheth, and the 5 sons of Michal, the daughter of Saul, whom she brought up for Adriel, the son of Barzillai, the Mahalathite, and he delivered them into the hands of the Gibeonites. And they hanged them in the hill before the Lord, And they fell all 7 together and were put to death in the days of the harvest, in the first days, in the beginning of barley harvest. Oh. And Rizpah the daughter of Aiah took sackcloth and spread it for her upon the rock, from beginning of harvest until water dropped upon them out of heaven, and suffered neither the birds of the air to rest on them by day, nor the beasts of the field by night. And it was told David what Rizpah the daughter of Aiah, the concubine of Saul, had done. And David went and took the bones of Saul and the bones of Jonathan his son from the men of Jabesh Gilead, which had stolen them from the street of Bethshan, where the Philistines hanged them, when the Philistines had slain Saul in Gilboa. And he brought up from thence the bones of Saul and the bones of Jonathan his son, and they gathered the bones of them that were hanged. And the bones of Saul and Jonathan his son buried they in the country of Benjamin in Zelah, in the sepulchre of Kish his father, and they performed all that the king commanded. And after that God was entreated for the land. So David agreed, and the people he chose were 2 sons from Saul's concubine Rizpah. So Rizpah was Saul's concubine. Am I going to know what I mean by probably not. Concube. I'm going to go for the whole word, even though I don't think I can see it. Okay, I should have just put it underneath. Oh, never mind. Okay, so 2 sons of Saul's concubine and 5 sons of his daughter Merab. And David spared Mephibosheth because obviously he made an oath with David to look after Jonathan and everyone who came from him. And Mephibosheth was Jonathan's son. And so they hung them, and they left them there until rain poured down from the heaven. And that is a symbol of God lifting the curse and ending the drought. So left hanging until the rain, symbolizing the end of the curse and drought. But what Saul's concubine Rizpah did was she went to the execution site and she spent many days protecting her son's bodies from scavengers, which was very emotional. That's actually really kind of sad, isn't it? And David heard about that, and he heard of her devotion, so he retrieved the bones of Saul and Jonathan and of these 7 people who were just executed now, and buried them all respectfully in Saul's tomb. And God accepted the atonement that had been made. So Rizpah protected the bodies from scavengers. David collected all the bones and had them buried. Yes. And it ended here saying God was entreated for the land. So he'd accepted that and was now receptive to prayer. So it was all paid for. Moreover, the Philistines had yet war again with Israel, and David went down. As always, the Philistines, they're always there. There's always a war with Philistines. Anyways, okay, so Philistines were back. And David went down, and his servants with him, and fought against the Philistines, and David waxed faint. And Ishbi-Benob, which was of the sons of the giant, the weight whose spear weighed 300 shekels of brass in weight, he being girded with a new sword, thought to have slain David. But Abishai, the son of Zeruiah, succored him, shout called him, and smote the Philistine, and killed him. Then the men of David swear unto him, saying, Thou shalt go no more out with us to battle, that thou quench not the light of Israel. David led his troops out in battle against the Philistines again, but he waxed faint means, he got tired. He's older now, isn't he? We've got to accept that, you can't always be out fighting. And David was almost killed by one of the giants, but Abishai just about saved him. But it was far too close, and so they made him promise that he wouldn't go to fight again. They didn't want their old king dying on the battlefield. Promised to not fight. But how dedicated is he? Still fighting even in his old age. And it came to pass after this, that there was again a battle with the Philistines at Gob. Then Sibbechai the Hushathite slew Saph, which was of the sons of the giant. And there was again a battle in Gob with the Philistines, where Elhanan the son of Jereregim, I've got some hard names, a Beth-Thelemite, slew the brother of Goliath the Gittite, the staff of whose spear was like a weaver's beam. And there was yet a battle in Gath, so many wars, where was a man of great stature that had on every hand 6 fingers, oh interesting, and on every foot 6 toes, 24 in number, and he was also born to the giant. And when he defied Israel, Jonathan the son of Shimea, the brother of David, slew him. These 4 were born to the giant in Gath, and fell by the hand of David and by the hand of his servants. Right, so that's 3 more of the Philistine champions. It started with Goliath back in the day, and David was still fighting them today. So 3 more Philistine giants fell by David's army. So yeah, actually there were 4. The word says 4, not 3. 4. So yeah, 4 people, 4 giants fell by the hand of David and his servants. Indeed. There's always fights with the Philistines. So David was still fighting hard, even though he was old and exhausted. He was still willing to be on the front line with his soldiers. But even they were saying, okay, enough, David. Like, you almost got killed. Like, we can't have you. You're the light. They call him. They're the light of Israel. We don't want anything to happen to you. So he has paused, but he managed to knock down quite a few of the Philistines' giants, so great success for David. Right, so please leave your takeaways in the comments below, and join me tomorrow for chapter 22. I'll see you then. Bye!